Good afternoon, everyone. This week we are going to talk about sisters in the Bible. And just like the past few weeks, we are going to see if they are good and bad and what they did to make them that way. Most brothers and sisters have times they get along and times that they fight, argue, disagree. We would all consider this pretty normal. But what I want us to think about today while we're talking about these sisters in the Bible, we're going to talk about, I want you to think about at the end of the story, when I'm done talking about them, would you deem them as a worthy sister? So we're going to start with Miriam. And as we all know, Miriam is Moses' sister. And it seems like Moses and Miriam did get along sometimes, because in Exodus 15, we see that Moses had just led the Israelites across the Red Sea. And we see where Miriam was there, and she joined with them in song and singing a song to God. And this song is recorded in Exodus. So at this point in their lives, I think it's very safe to say that Miriam was very supportive of Moses. But like most things, it didn't stay that way for very long. When Moses married a Cushite woman, we saw that she was not so supportive. So in Numbers 12 verses 1 and 2, I want to read that. And this is the turning point for where Miriam is, I don't want to say not a good sister, but the turning point of where there was a bad point in her life as when she was a sister. So Numbers 12, 1 and 2, it says, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. And they said, has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? And the Lord heard it. Miriam was jealous at this point that God was speaking to Moses and not speaking to her and not speaking to Aaron. And it is her jealousy that got her punished. God gave her leprosy, but it doesn't end there. Moses, even though he is the one that people are jealous of, he still holds that good brother status. And he goes to God on Miriam's behalf, and he pleads with God to release this, I don't want to say curse, but release the leprosy from Miriam, let her get back to a normal life, forgive her for what she's done. And God did, but he did punish Miriam. I think it said for 7 days she had to be cast out of the camp because he covered her in leprosy. But once that punishment was over, God allowed her to go back into the camp with Moses and Aaron and the rest of the people. So even though Miriam was jealous of Moses, Moses was still there when she needed it. And isn't that like today? Aren't brothers and sisters like that? I know Elizabeth and Austin are. They'll be fighting 1 minute and they're loving on each other the next minute. I think all sisters and sisters, brothers and brothers, sisters and brothers, whatever combination you want to put in there, we can fight, we can argue, we can disagree. But in the end, I think we all come back to being there for one another and doing whatever it is that it needs to be done for one another. So Miriam was a good sister some of the time and a bad sister some of the time. And I would say all of us are sisters like Miriam. Sometimes we're good and sometimes we're bad. But how is Miriam remembered? I don't know about you, but when someone says Miriam, I automatically think of baby Moses in the basket. I think of her going down the waterway and watching and making sure her brother stayed safe. She's the one who ran up or saw Pharaoh's daughter and went up to Pharaoh's daughter and said, hey, I know someone who can help you raise Moses. She was very careful not to say her brother, but she was looking out for him. And I think when I think of Miriam, I think of the good that she's done, not the bad, not the jealousy that we just talked about. She was used in God's plan and she was written about in the Bible. So I would think it's safe to say that Miriam was deemed a worthy woman. Next, I want to talk about Rahab. Now, unlike Miriam, when I hear the word Rahab, I immediately think bad. And the only reason I think bad is because of her reputation. That is what sticks out in my mind. She was a prostitute. And a lot of times when you hear something like that about somebody, they could be the best person in the world. They could have a heart of gold. But when you say something like she's a prostitute, that's what sticks. You don't really concentrate on the good things. You concentrate on, oh, look what she's doing with her life. Look what she chose to do. And that is what I do with Rahab. I do not look at the good that she did immediately when I hear Rahab. I automatically think, oh, that's the prostitute in the Bible. And I never would have thought of her being a good sister. And honestly, until I was doing this devotional, I have read this account in the Bible several times, and it, I guess, just never stuck to me. Maybe I just took it as common sense, or took it as just, I don't know, how you read things and it's there, it's there, but you don't really think about it. And then these verses I'm ready to read, it says that she had brothers and sisters. Now, I know she had a mom and a dad. I remember that part, but I don't remember the brother and sister part. And when I was doing this devotional, I guess because I'm concentrating on sisters, it stuck out. Rahab was a sister. Now, how proud would you be of your sister if she came and told you, I'm a prostitute? Or even if she didn't tell you, but you knew her occupation. Would you view her as a good sister? But I want to see if Rahab has the reputation I think she has, or if she is a good sister. And we know the background of the story. We know that Joshua had sent 2 spies into the land of Jericho to see if they could take over the land. When the spies got there, they went into Rahab's house. They were talking to her. The king's men came looking for these spies. They got word that the spies were there, so they came to capture them. And we all know Rahab had hid them on the roof of her house. She said, yes, they were here, but they've gone. So she gets the king's men out of her house, goes up to the 2 spies Joshua had sent, and she helps them escape the city. But there was a kind of, if I do this for you, you're going to do this for me, which shows me that Miriam's not totally a dumb woman. I mean, she had her plan in place, and she knew they were God's people. She was smart. She knew what was going on, but she also knew that she was in danger as well. So let's go to Joshua chapter 2, verses 12 through 14. And it says, now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you also deal kindly with my father's house, and give me a sure sign that you will save alive my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. And the men said to her, our life for yours, even to death. If you do not tell this business of ours, then when the Lord gives us the land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you. Here we have Rahab telling the spies that she is willing to help them, but she wants something in return. Did we catch what she said in verse 13? And that you will save alive my father and my mother and my brothers and my sisters? So this tells me that Rahab was a good sister. She didn't have to mention them. She didn't have to mention her mom and dad, her brothers and sisters. She could just say, come back and save me. Get me out of this house before you destroy this city. But she didn't. She was not selfish. She did not just worry about her life. She included her family. She included her brothers and her sisters. And God certainly does not approve of bad things people do. But if they change, which we see Rahab, she changed her life. He is willing to accept them. One who is quote unquote bad does not have to be forever bad. So we would deem Rahab a worthy woman. I think we would. I think she's a very worthy woman for putting her life in danger, changing her life around, saving God's people, saving her family. I think she'd be deemed as a good, worthy sister. So the last 2 sisters I want to talk about, they kind of go hand in hand, are Mary and Martha. And we're going to end with them. We're going to talk about 2 different accounts that have Mary and Martha in them. One you're very familiar with. The other one I'm sure you're familiar with, but maybe not as much as the first one. In this story we're about to talk about, we see some true sibling rivalry. But once again, both Mary and Martha are deemed worthy women. So let's look at the couple of stories that involve Mary and Martha. The first one I want to look at is the one I always remember, and it takes place in Luke 10, verses 38 through 42. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me all alone to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. We see that Mary and Martha are total opposite sisters. Mary stops what she was doing and listened to Jesus, while Martha continued to serve. She continued to do, and the Bible doesn't tell us In my mind, she continues getting food ready. She continues getting the house ready. She continues to try to be hospitable. She wants everything right. She's I don't want to say a busybody, but a busy person. When she has company at her house, she just feels like there's something that always has to be done. She cannot stop. She cannot sit down and just take in the time and be with the company. She thinks she's way too busy to stop what she's doing. She went to Jesus and said, "Tell her to help me." Don't we do that sometimes today? I hear that a million times in my house by Elizabeth. Come help me. Tell Dad to help me. Tell Austin to do this. Mommy, you do this. And Austin go, tell sister. I hear it all the time. Tell them to do something. Help me. They're just sitting there. Make them get up. I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of being a Martha. When I have people at my house, I feel like I'm scattered in a million different directions, especially if I'm serving dinner or serving lunch. I always feel like I'm going to forget something. I feel like, I feel like I constantly need to be checking. Do you need a drink? Do you need more food? Do you need a napkin? Do you need this? Do you need that? Austin, do you need your hands washed? It's something all the time. And I feel by the time dinner is over, I'm lucky if I've had one bite of my own food. So I am a Martha. I am worried about everything. I'm worried about having the right dishes clean, because unlike some of you all, Austin and Elizabeth use different dishes than Matt and I do. So I've got to make sure that each person has their own dish that they're allowed to have and not allowed to have, so I don't have to worry about the glasses being broke. So I'm constantly worried. And there are times when we have people over, I will go to Matt and say, "Will you help me? Get up and help me." Am I not being Martha? Am I not being Martha? When sometimes Matt's being Mary and Matt's doing what we're supposed to do. Matt is fellowshipping, Matt is talking, Matt is listening, Matt is caring. And I'm too busy worried about, well, did Austin grab the wrong glass? Is he running around the house with a glass instead of his little plastic sippy cup? What do I have strewn all over the floor? Did I give him the right sippy cup? Because we have some sippy cups that spill all over everywhere. That's what I worry about. So I relate to Mary and Martha very well. And I could see myself saying, tell her to do something. Tell my sister to help me. So I want us to think, are you more like a Mary or are you more like a Martha? And I've already told you, I'm more of a Martha. So we're going to see, again, we're going to another one that involves Mary and Martha in John chapter 11. So we see in Luke, in this story, that Mary is the busy person, wanting to keep things in order. Mary is I'm just going to sit down and take it all in and just sit here and talk to my company. We're going to see if their roles switch in John 11. And I'm going to read in verse 1. It says, "Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Martha and her sister Mary." So we see that Lazarus has become ill, and they're with Mary and Martha. And now we're going to read 17 through verse 27, and we're going to see the reactions of Mary and Martha. And we're going to see if their roles switched, or if Mary is still acting like Mary and Martha is still acting like Martha. In verse 17, "Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, 'Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you.' Jesus said to her, 'Your brother will rise again.' Martha said to him, 'I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day.' Jesus said to her, 'I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?' She said to him, 'Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world.'" Okay, did we notice the difference between the sisters again? Big difference. In verse 20, did you catch what Mary and Martha did? Martha went to meet Jesus. Mary stayed. Again, just like what we talked about before. Mary stayed and talked to Jesus while Martha was running around trying to get things in order. What does this say? Mary ran off to meet Jesus. Now, she ran off to meet him to accuse him that the reason that he was not there is the reason Lazarus was dead. That's not the point I want to make. The point is she left. She wanted to go fix it. She wanted to get things right. Where'd Mary stay? Mary stayed at home. Why? Who did they say came and visited? That they had, many of the Jews came, and Mary was there being consoled in the time of death and time of grief of her brother. Again, in this situation, I have seen it happen. When a loved one dies, you've got some family members that stay. They stay in the house. They're the ones that are greeting people as they come in the door with food. They're the ones sitting there and talking to all the people who want to come and give their condolences. Then you've got some that, well, I've got to call the autopsy people to find out what happened if it's that type of situation. Or I've got to call the doctor and find out exactly why this happened to my whoever that died. You've got the ones that are constantly going to be busy, like Martha, and not taking the situation. And you've got ones like Mary that are going to stay. Is that saying one's right and one's wrong? No. That's just showing you how opposite people can be, but yet they both can still be right. In verse 21, it's Martha tells Jesus, if you had been here, our brother would not have died. So you remember earlier, she was blaming Jesus for Mary not helping her. And now she's blaming Jesus for Lazarus dying. But as we go on, he starts talking about the resurrection and the life. It says when Jesus tells her that he is the resurrection and life is only in him, she then admits that he is Christ, the Son of God. She shows her faith in him, not knowing what he is about to do. Even though Mary and Martha disagreed on things that should be done, we can clearly see they loved each other very much and they supported each other in the bad times. Mary was still there for Martha, and Martha was still there for Mary. Now, they may have disagreed on the things that should have been done. They may have disagreed on how things were going to be done. That's just the difference in people. No two people are alike. And that's what I like about looking at these sisters, is they remind me of real life me, real life things. I can relate to this. I can relate to the death of a loved one, and some family members are off doing something and some are sitting there. I can relate to having people to my house, and some are sitting there and some are always up getting something, cleaning something up, getting dessert ready, getting whatever. I can relate. And I think I like this. I think I relate too because I am a sister. So like I asked earlier, are you more of a Mary or are you more of a Martha? It doesn't matter what your answer is because both of these are deemed worthy sisters. Do they have their faults? Yes, but don't we all? So today we have talked about Miriam, Rahab, Mary, and Martha. None of them had perfect lives, but all of them were good sisters. Can we say we are like Miriam, or Rahab, or Mary, or Martha? If not, why not? This week, I want us all to be better sisters in Christ, so like these women, we can one day be called a worthy woman. Or if you are a sister, maybe you can be called a worthy sister. I hope you all have a good week, and I will see you all next week.